Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, it's just not enough? Like you're constantly hiding parts of yourself because if people saw the real you, they just might not accept it. That is shame talking. And let me tell you, it is holding you back from everything that you really want. Connection, creativity, joy, all of it. So today, let's break this all down and figure out how we can stop shame from running our lives. Shame is like that unwanted guest that just shows up uninvited. You know that heavy feeling when you mess up or think that there is something wrong with you? It sneaks in when you feel like you don't measure up to everybody else's expectations, and it can feel extremely exhausting. And what does shame do? It makes you want to hide. It tells you, you are not enough. And if people saw the real you, they just wouldn't accept it. So you start feeling like you need to be perfect. Like you've got to have it all together before you can even show up. But that is a straight up lie. That lie keeps you playing small, it keeps you silent and holds you back from the life that you deserve. Now, I really want to put you on someone who opened my eyes to all of this, and that is Brené Brown. She has this TED Talk called Listening to Shame that you need to check out on YouTube. And a few years back, I read her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, and let me tell you, it changed my whole perspective. She talks about how vulnerability isn't a weakness, but it's actually your real strength. And I know that being vulnerable is extremely scary because it means putting yourself out there and risking rejection, and it means letting people see your imperfections. But trust me, that's where all the good stuff happens. That's where you connect with people, get creative, grow, and actually feel real joy. Think about it. Anytime you're creating something new or having a real conversation, you are taking a risk. And that risk, it's what makes life life. But then here comes shame creeping in. It'll make you feel like you're not smart enough, not strong enough, or pretty enough, or whatever enough. But here's the truth. Shame lies to you. If you let it control you, it'll stop you from seeing just how amazing and capable you really are. The moment you own who you are, flaws and all, that's when you really start living. Also, let's clear something up really quick. Shame and guilt, two different things. Guilt is like, I did something wrong. Shame is like, I am wrong. One's about an action you can apologize, learn, and grow from. The other, it attacks who you are, and that's the damage that happens. Shame doesn't help you grow. It just eats away at your confidence. But when you face it head on, that's when you take its power away. And now guilt is tricky. It acts like you're being responsible. Like if you hold onto it for long enough, you're making up for your mistakes. But really, guilt is also just draining you. It keeps you stuck in the past, overanalyzing and apologizing over and over. Instead of helping you move forward, it just holds you back. What you really need to do is let that go. Own the mistake, sure. Take accountability, but then move on. We are all human. We all mess up. It is just a part of life. And shame? It also creeps in when we care way too much about what other people think. We've all been there, right? That pressure to fit in, to change, or to hide pieces of ourselves just to be accepted. It is so exhausting and completely unnecessary. Here is the truth. You cannot control what other people think about you. No matter how hard you try, someone is always going to have something to say. If you base your worth on other people's opinions, you will never, ever feel like you're enough. And this constant need for approval, it also comes from shame. Shame says, you're not good enough, so go get someone to tell you that you are. But that is a slippery slope because external validation doesn't last. The real work is learning to validate yourself, to say, you know what? I'm enough as I am, flaws and all. And listen, Not everyone is gonna like you, and that's okay. I had to learn that the hard way. The only thing that really matters is how you feel about yourself. Are you living in alignment with your values? Are you being your authentic self? When you stop trying to meet everyone's expectations, that's when you free yourself from shame and guilt. And that is when real confidence starts to grow. So, how do we break free from shame, guilt, and worrying about what others think? It is one word: empathy. When you start showing yourself some love, when you're gentle with yourself, shame and guilt can't keep running the show. We all mess up. We all fall short. And it's not about being perfect. It's about how you handle it. Think about this for a second. How do you treat your best friend when they make a mistake? You're hopefully not sitting there tearing them apart, right? You remind them that it's okay, that they'll figure it out, and that one mistake doesn't define them. So why is it so hard to be that same way with yourself? We're always the hardest on ourselves, holding ourselves to standards we'd never expect from anyone else. We forgive other people easily, but when it comes to us, we are absolutely ruthless. You deserve the same kindness and understanding that you would show your best friend. You deserve to look in the mirror and say, I got this, and it's okay to mess up. Because how are you ever gonna grow if you're constantly beating yourself down? This whole self-love and empathy for yourself thing, it's not just a nice idea, it is the key to real growth. When you're kind to yourself, you give yourself the space to be human, to make mistakes, and to learn from them without feeling like an absolute failure. Think about it. How are you ever supposed to get better, to move forward, if every time you slip, you are tearing yourself down? Being kind to yourself doesn't mean that you have to let yourself off the hook. It's just about accepting that you are human. You're gonna have days where you mess up, where you don't hit the mark, and that is okay. Those moments are where growth actually happens. When you are gentle with yourself, you are more likely to learn from your mistakes instead of letting them define you. Now, imagine if instead of criticizing yourself for every little thing, you treated yourself like someone who's still learning, still growing, and worth giving a little grace. That is where the real change starts. When you show yourself empathy, it builds resilience. It helps you bounce back quicker because you're not stuck in the cycle of self-blame and self-loathing. One slip up does not erase all of the progress that you've made. And listen, it's also about having empathy for other people. When someone is telling you their problems and you can relate, hearing someone say, "Me too," it's like all that shame you were carrying suddenly loses its grip. That is the power of empathy, not just from others, but from yourself. When you give yourself permission to be imperfect, you free yourself to grow, to keep showing up, and to keep moving forward, flaws and all. I know that it is very tempting to stay on the sidelines, waiting until you feel ready before you really show up in life. But let me tell you a secret, you are never gonna feel 100% ready. The moment you decide to show up as your true self with all of your flaws, that's when you start living. So Brené Brown loves this quote from Theodore Roosevelt, and it is one of my favorites too. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails daring greatly. Shame and guilt will try to keep you on the sidelines. But if you want to live fully, you've got to step into that arena. Show up even when you don't have it all figured out. Be brave enough to be seen, messy, imperfect, and real. So let's stop hiding. I need this advice just as much as everybody else. Let's stop pretending to be perfect. It's time to dare to be seen, because real strength, it's not in being flawless, it is in being brave enough to show up exactly as you are.